still remember the day like it was yesterday. The sunlight poured through the office window just right, slicing across my desk in golden lines. It hit my notes, my laptop, even the coffee cup I hadn't had time to finish, and for a moment everything seemed perfect. I had been grinding for months, sometimes even days and nights blurred together. Meetings, calls, presentations, I had sacrificed so much. And all of it was for this one moment, a deal that could change everything. Not just my career, but my life. Finally, after what felt like endless preparation, endless hurdles, it was happening. I could almost taste it. The mix of excitement and nervous energy pulsed through me, the kind that makes your hands tingle, your stomach flip, your heart pound like a drum. I had dreamed about this moment for years, and for the first time it felt real. Everything was aligning perfectly, or at least I thought it was. And then he walked in. My closest friend, someone I had trusted more than anyone else in the world, stepped into my office. His smile looked easy, natural, reassuring. But there was a flicker in his eyes that I couldn't read. Something that made me pause for the briefest moment, a feeling I ignored instantly because I didn't want to doubt him. After all, we had been through so much together. He had celebrated my small victories with genuine joy, consoled me during the defeats that cut the deepest, and had always promised he'd have my back, no matter what. "Hey man, heard the big news," he said casually, leaning on my desk with that effortless confidence of his. "Congrats! Looks like you're finally hitting the big leagues." I smiled, feeling that warmth of support, letting it wash over the tension in my chest. I had no idea that his presence that day was the calm before a storm that would hit me harder than anything I had ever faced. The meeting went perfectly, or at least it seemed that way. Every point we had worked on, every negotiation, every careful word I had prepared, landed exactly as it should. The deal appeared solid. The rush of victory hit me, sharp and sweet, like champagne fizz on the tongue. I thought about celebrating, about sharing this moment with him, someone who had been by my side since the beginning, someone I believed would cheer for me as loudly as I had for him. But I was blind. The betrayal had already begun. Quietly, subtly, invisible. I didn't see it then, but the cracks were forming, tiny fractures in the foundation I had built my trust on. By the time I left the office that evening, I had no idea that the deal I had spent months chasing, every sleepless night, every sacrifice was slipping away. And worse, the person orchestrating it was the one I trusted most. As I walked to my car, I felt that strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration, completely unaware of the storm brewing behind the calm surface. My mind was already planning the next steps, thinking of ways to celebrate, unaware that my whole world, the relationships I had leaned on and the future I had worked so hard to build, were about to be shaken to the core. I couldn't see it yet. But soon, very soon, the invisible cracks would widen into a chasm that would force me to question everything. My judgment, my friendships, even myself. And in that moment, I would learn that betrayal is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Hidden behind a smile, waiting, patient, watching. The next few days passed in what seemed like normal routine, or at least I tried to convince myself they were. My friend kept in touch, sending messages that were casual, almost innocent. "How's it going with the deal?" he'd ask, or any updates on the client. Sometimes he offered advice, tips that seemed harmless at first. I told myself he was just being supportive. After all, we had been through so much together. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things started to feel off. It began with small things I almost missed. An email I never received, even though I was sure it had been sent to me. A meeting that was suddenly rescheduled without anyone telling me. Conversations that seemed one-sided, where he always seemed a step ahead, knowing details he shouldn't. At first, I brushed it off. I wanted to believe in him, to believe that everything was normal. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was just being paranoid. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered that something wasn't right. That someone was moving pieces behind the scenes. I tried to ignore it, busying myself with the work I knew I had to do. But the whisper grew louder with every passing day, until I couldn't escape it. And then it happened. The first undeniable sign that shattered the illusion. My phone rang, and on the other end was one of the partners involved in the deal. Tone was polite, professional, like any ordinary business call, but the words that followed hit me like a hammer to the chest. "Oh, the deal," the partner said. "Yes, your friend has already taken it over. He handled the final agreement yesterday. He's running it now." I froze. For a moment, the world tilted. My heart stopped. I felt a cold emptiness spread through my chest. Every strategy, every late night, every painstaking email and presentation, it had been stolen right from under me. And worse, the person responsible was someone I trusted more than anyone. Someone who smiled at me every day, pretending nothing had changed. My closest friend. Anger surged through me, raw and uncontrollable. I wanted to scream, to grab him by the collar and demand answers. I wanted to confront him then and there, to make him see the damage he had done. But I knew that acting on pure emotion would only make me lose everything. I couldn't let him sense my fury. I had to be strategic. I had to plan. I had to take control. And in that moment, something shifted inside me, a spark of clarity. I realized that this betrayal wasn't the end, it was the beginning. A challenge. A test of my resolve, my patience, and my cunning. I wasn't going to let him walk away with what was mine. I wasn't going to let him destroy everything I had worked for. I made a silent vow that day, one I carried with me like fire in my veins. He had crossed a line, and I would make sure he paid the price. Not recklessly, not angrily, but smartly, decisively, and without leaving a shadow of doubt about who had won in the end. I don't like the word revenge the way most people use it. Most people hear revenge and think of anger, chaos, loud reactions, reckless decisions made in the heat of pain. But that wasn't going to be me, because I knew something important. If I moved with emotion, I would lose. If I exploded, he would paint me as unstable. If I rushed, he would stay in control. So no, mine had to be different. Mine had to be smart, controlled, calculated, and most importantly, public. I wasn't going to hit him with fists or shouting. I was going to hit him where it actually mattered. His reputation. His credibility, his network. The things he cared about more than loyalty, more than friendship, more than truth. I created a strategy step by step. First, I secured my own position with the other partners. I didn't beg. I didn't complain. I showed up sharper than ever, confident, professional, unshaken. I made sure they still saw me as valuable, as someone who belonged at the table. I reminded them without saying it directly, I'm not done. I'm not weak. I'm still a force. And quietly, I started planting questions. Not accusations, questions, small ones, subtle ones. The kind that make people pause, the kind that leave a mark. In meetings, I would tilt my head slightly and say things like, "That's interesting because that wasn't the timeline we agreed on." Or just to clarify, when did that email get sent? I don't remember receiving it. Little breadcrumbs, nothing loud, nothing dramatic, just enough to make people wonder something feels off. And that was the point. Because doubt spreads faster than anger and suspicion is louder than shouting. All the while, I stayed calm, polite, friendly, even supportive. I smiled when he spoke. I nodded when he pretended everything was normal. I played the role perfectly. And that's what made it dangerous, because he thought he had won. He thought I was broken. He had no idea I was gathering evidence piece by piece. Every message, every contradiction, every lie. I was watching him build his image while preparing to destroy it with truth. The plan was simple, not messy, not emotional, just undeniable. Expose the truth publicly, make it clear, make it impossible to twist, and make sure everyone knew exactly what he had done. Not to humiliate him for fun, but to reclaim what was mine, to restore my name, to remind everyone, including him, that betrayal has a cost. The day finally came. I called the meeting with all the relevant people, partners, stakeholders, and yes, him. My heart was racing, my mind buzzing, but I forced myself to stay composed. Every step I took into that room was deliberate. Every gesture measured. I couldn't let him see even a flicker of doubt. I didn't just walk in, I walked in with the weight of preparation, patience, and focus. Everyone sat around the table, exchanging polite greetings, unaware that the air was about to change. I took my seat. I looked around and then began calmly, methodically, presenting the evidence piece by piece. Emails, meeting notes, timelines, messages, testimonials. It all fit together like the pieces of a puzzle. Each fact hit harder than the last, and I watched as his carefully constructed lies crumbled in real time. He tried to speak, tried to explain, tried to deny it all, but the facts didn't lie. The room shifted around him as people absorbed the truth. Expressions changed. Shock, disbelief, anger, judgment. People I respected looked at him with a mixture of pity and disbelief, silently questioning how he could have stooped so low. And me? I felt a strange combination of satisfaction and relief. Not joy, not gloating, but the quiet relief that the truth was finally visible, undeniable, undeniable to everyone who mattered. He sat there, speechless, the mask of confidence gone, the image he had worked so hard to maintain shattered. His plans, his manipulations, his betrayals, it was all laid bare, exposed for everyone in that room to see. And I could see it in his eyes. He had underestimated me. He had assumed I would be passive, blind, naive, easy to dismiss. But I never was, I didn't shout, I didn't attack, I didn't insult. I simply let the evidence speak. And in that silence, that heavy, tension-filled silence, the power shifted. The balance of authority, respect, and credibility had moved. I could feel it in the room, in the way people held themselves, in the way he slumped in his seat, realizing for the first time that he had miscalculated everything. The deal wasn't just about business anymore. It was about truth, integrity, and consequence. And he had nowhere left to hide. After the confrontation, life slowly returned to a new normal. The deal I had worked so hard for was finally back in my hands. The long nights, the stress, the sacrifices, they hadn't been for nothing. My reputation, the one I had feared was shattered forever, was restored. I could walk into rooms with confidence again, knowing that people saw me for who I truly was. And my friendship, well, that was gone, irreparably. The trust I once gave freely was gone, and I knew it could never be repaired. Sometimes people leave marks that time can't erase, and this was one of those marks. I learned a lesson I will never forget. Trust is precious, but it is also fragile. Some people will take advantage of it, no matter how much history, loyalty, or proof of commitment you share. And revenge isn't about chaos, anger, or screaming. It isn't about emotional explosions or public spectacle. True revenge is about reclaiming control. It's about restoring justice. It's about protecting yourself from further harm and showing, with clarity and calm, that betrayal will not define you. I also learned something important about myself. I'm stronger than I realized. Calm, strategic, persistent, patient. Those weren't just qualities I had to summon. They were qualities I had relied on all along, even when I didn't know it. They allowed me to turn betrayal into a moment of power, not weakness. They allowed me to act decisively while others floundered. So if you've ever been betrayed, remember this. It's not about how hard someone hits you. It's about how smart you are in response. It's about how you take the pieces, rebuild from them, and rise above. It's about letting the truth speak louder than anger, letting strategy win over impulse, and never letting someone else define your story. Because in the end, exposing the truth isn't just revenge, it's freedom. Freedom from doubt. Freedom from lies. Freedom from people who underestimated you. And no one, absolutely no one, can take that away from you.